The hot stove is already heating up for the Washington Nationals as they have two all-star players that teams are trying to trade for. And guys, it's going to get hot.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And I am your host, Ryan Clary, your Nationals insider here, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. And later on in today's program, I got to have you guys have this on your radar. Expect savvy moves this offseason from Paul Toboni. I'll tell you and explain to you what exactly that could look like. And really, I think this is going to happen. So stay tuned for that conversation later on in the show today. And in the second segment, the Nationals really can only trade one of these star players here that teams are already trying to trade for. And speaking of the Nationals, obviously, they will be taking calls on two players that will be crucial for this team and crucial for this rebuild. Those two players are MacKenzie Gore and CJ Abrams. Let's just discuss that news here, as one of the prominent MLB reporters has gone on the record saying that teams are already inquiring about the two All-Stars. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So Jeff Passan over the weekend, right after the Nationals actually hired Blake Butera, Jeff Passan went on the record to say that teams out there are already inquiring about All-Star CJ Abrams and All-Star pitcher MacKenzie Gore. Let's start out with MacKenzie Gore here first. I think that the best way forward for the Nationals is trading MacKenzie Gore. This is something that I think we have all had in our radar since this past summer, when back in July, the Nationals were rumored to move off of the all-star left-handed pitcher. And I think that at this time, that's what makes sense for this team. We talk about value and just kind of how we can kind of retain value and use value in different ways. And I think with a forward-thinking front office, this is going to be not common practice, but this is a tool that will be utilized. And Paul Toboni comes from an organization of which they just traded Rafael Devers in the middle of his prime. They traded away Mookie Betts in the middle of their prime. And I think the return on Mookie Betts, obviously they'd like to have that one back, but Paul Toboni was not the official decision maker in that trade. This year with Devers, I believe that he had a big kind of say in what was going to happen and what the return would look like. And a lot of people in baseball thought the return looked pretty good for the Red Sox. So when you move off of some really talented players, some all-star players in the middle of their prime, you got to have some good return. And MacKenzie Gore entering his age 27th season here, this is going to be a massive haul in return for the Nationals. But if you were to move him, I think that right now, I do think while this is going to be a big haul, I do not think that Nationals fans should expect this franchise-altering move. You are going to get back good players in return. But this is not going to be that trade where you send Juan Soto to the Padres and you get back half their farm system. That is a trade that we will likely never see in today's game again. And so, Gore is going to give you a good return. This is an all-star pitcher who has yet to really enter his prime, and in my opinion, hasn't even touched his ceiling. This is someone who does have Cy Young potential down the road. It's just a matter of if a team can tap into that. In the value of Gore, there have been some real inconsistencies surrounding him. I love MacKenzie Gore. I think that he could be an ace. But right now, the track record shows that he has had real command issues throughout his career. Does a team look at that and maybe back away from that? Or do they look at his nasty stuff and really just some of the best stuff from a left-handed pitcher in all of baseball and say, yeah, we can work with that and we can extend him? Because I think the bigger question here right now is, who is more likely to extend here with the Nationals? Well, CJ Abrams is represented by ROC Nation Sports. And then MacKenzie Gore is represented by you-know-who, Scott Boras. That is another factor into why I would be willing to trade off MacKenzie Gore. Are the Nationals going to retain him? Who knows at this point? In 2 years, is he going to sign an extension here in DC? I don't know. But here's what I do know. He will enter free agency. That is exactly what Boras clients do. If I were to give it any percent chance that MacKenzie Gore would sign an extension here, I give it like a 0.0001% chance. Genuinely, that's how I feel. But CJ Abrams, on the other hand, I think that you could extend him. And I think there is a plan in place to really make CJ Abrams an important piece of this future. I think CJ Abrams has had a lot of inconsistencies. And that is something that has shined through. We've talked about the defensive struggles. Right now, he's not my shortstop entering 2026. I've said that on the record. I'm going to stick with that. He is my second baseman moving forward. If you look at his offensive numbers and what he was doing at shortstop and just move those over to second base, you would assume that he would be better defensively at second. You would assume that his numbers would take off a little bit more, having that confidence of being a second baseman as well. I like the idea of extending CJ Abrams. And I think that the Nationals can actually do that, even with ownership that has not been willing to dish out the extension money at this point, besides an $80 million extension for Keibert Ruiz. But right now, you are in this weird phase where it's like, yeah, you could sell off talent like MacKenzie Gore, but you don't want to sell off all of them. And if you do sell off all of them, then hopefully these are major league ready prospects. Kind of something similar to what the Marlins did, getting Kyle Stowers back in return for Trevor Rogers a few years ago. This is going to be a very puzzling offseason. This is going to be new. This is going to be strange. But right now, the two players that the Nationals have that are really in their primes and that have been all-star players who will be free agents after these next two seasons, teams are already inquiring about them. I think MacKenzie Gore, again, we have been talking about this all season long. At this point, I do expect a trade. MLB trade rumors had him as the #1 trade target for this offseason. It feels as if there's just so much smoke surrounding a MacKenzie Gore trade that I think it will happen. But with CJ Abrams, he's the one that I'm hesitant about. I think having an everyday player as good as Abrams is so valuable. And I think that right now, his skill set is so polished and he can be so much better at defense and base running and even just being more consistent at the plate. I want to see what this new front office and new coaching staff can do with someone like Abrams and the talent that he has. This is someone who has real power, real speed, and I think he does have the potential to be a good second baseman defensively speaking. But the bigger question is going to be, where do they see value? Where does this front office kind of see where this thing is going? Because if I'm Paul Toboni, I would not be willing to trade off both of these guys unless someone is offering a huge deal for both of them. And if someone actually does that, then what will a return look like? I think the value that you're going to get in return is, number one, a team's #1 prospect. And then number two, a team's #2 and #3 prospect, and maybe a major league ready arm. That's the kind of thing that you have to have. And with a new draft and develop system here in DC, you would feel a little differently about some of these prospects and the way that they could develop. I mean, I'm not going to say we trashed Mike Rizzo, but a lot of people were hard on Mike Rizzo for the lack of development over the years. I feel different about how some prospects might pan out. Like Seaver King, I feel good about the way that he could pan out under Toboni. I feel good about Brady House developing up in the majors. I feel good about Dylan Cruz. Like, this gives you a new chance. And so if you can get some really talented guys in this building, I'd like to see what the Nationals can do under this new front office. And so with that in mind, if you can get a ton of value for Gore and or Abrams, these are moves that the Nationals have to make. coming off like a 68-win season, whatever it was this year, you need talent and you need it quick. So with that said, the Nationals are going to be shopping both these guys. I do expect one of them to be traded, but I'm on the record for this. I don't think right now the Nationals should trade both of your all-star players. I'll explain to you why that is after this. NFL season is back, and honestly, there is nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating, and that is why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. And Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you pay. And I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. For instance, I just saw a Flash Zone deal for Christmas Day. Commanders Cowboys 3 p.m. kickoff. Deals are under $100 for Christmas Day to watch the Commanders take on the Cowboys. And also, Game Time is just the best because it's just faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I have bought tickets. You see all the deals before then. And of course, there are no surprise checkout fees. So when you do that, you can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Later on in the show, Nats fans, you need to keep your eyes out on savvy moves coming. You might be thinking to yourself, what do those savvy moves look like? And who could the Nationals be trading outside of Gore and Abrams? Yes, it's going to happen this offseason. Let me prepare you for that. We'll discuss that in just a few minutes. But I'm going to tell you why I think the Nationals cannot trade both Gore and Abrams. I think that there is a real case to be had for the Nationals not being close, but I think that there is a case to be had for them being close enough. This is not 2022 all over again, where you are just shipping off everything. This is not 2021 where you trade Max Scherzer, you trade Trey Turner, you're going to move off Daniel Hudson. The next offseason, you're going to make another trade, and you're going to trade Juan Soto at the deadline. This is not what's going to happen. But also, you're in that kind of weird space where you're like, okay, are we going to compete in the next 2 years? Probably not. Then who is going to have an expiring contract after these next 2 years? And who is going to bring in some good value for this team? And how could that value kind of dwindle as time goes on? MacKenzie, Gore, and CJ Abrams. But there is a case to be made for CJ Abrams staying right here in DC. Again, you can extend this guy. And I think that an everyday position player is so valuable for this team. This is a team that has lacked offense for a long, long time. This is a team that has lacked defense, that has lacked just, quite frankly, talent and young talent over the years. And so when you get a big trade, like when you trade away Juan Soto and you get back Gore, Abrams, Wood, Hassell, Susana, when you get back all of those guys, you don't want to trade off those guys too. And that's not really what this is about, but it's really more so about value and retaining it. I don't think CJ Abrams' value in a return trade would be enough to say, man, what could he be at second base for this team? What could he be at shortstop for at least half this next season and then call up Nasim Nunez or whatever it could be? I don't really see value in that. And let alone if you're to package them both or not package them and say you trade Gore and then you trade Abrams, then where is your talent? All of a sudden, you're missing a middle infielder who is one of your best offensive pieces, who probably will take a step up under this new regime. And then you're missing an ace of your staff, in which this rotation is absolutely brutal outside of MacKenzie Gore. I think you've got to keep one and trade the other. Now, I think it's going to be MacKenzie Gore, and I think that makes the most sense at this point, because what are the odds that you can re-sign him at this point? Probably pretty low. You would want to hold on to Abrams then. And I think that right now, Abrams' potential is still so high. Like, he is one of those guys that I will not quit. I will never quit this guy. He's got 25 to 30 home run potential. We know that he can steal 40 plus bases. We've seen him at times really lock in defensively and look good and make the web gem plays. He's had decent arm at times. Like, he just needs to make some tweaks. And you can make that same argument about Gore, but then you start looking down the road and you wonder to yourself, well, is he going to re-sign here? Is it possible to extend him? It's probably not. MacKenzie Gore is going to hit free agency. He is going to be a very coveted name when it comes to that process after 2027. And oh, by the way, if you're to move off of one of them now, we know how value works. If you wait until this year's trade deadline, you're going to get less value than what you will get in winter. That's why I wanted to move Gore at this year's deadline. I wanted to say, hey, 3 postseasons for MacKenzie Gore, a team's going to be willing to give up another top prospect for that. So I am a little frustrated by that process and how it went down. But now that we are here again, you cannot wait. You have to take the best possible package in return. And with that said, I think MacKenzie Gore gives you that best package, but also it's just the most realistic one. And I think that the Nationals, in just the way that they have been, you're not going to replace MacKenzie Gore. You're not going to go out there and sign someone to a big 6-year contract. I don't know if we're going to sign Michael King. That would be my guy to lock in on this offseason. I don't know if the Nationals are going to make any savvy moves. Maybe they could and get some big-time pitching talent in this building. But right now, with what the Nationals are looking for, you got to think to yourself, what is the best way forward? And how can they make this thing the most valuable return for this team? MacKenzie Gore gives you that. And it just becomes a realistic scenario of which, are you going to retain him? Probably not. And can you trust the Nationals to tap into the best talent with MacKenzie Gore? I don't know at this point. But I do trust them with CJ Abrams. I've seen it with him. I think right now, if you were to ask me, what's more valuable at their ceiling, a MacKenzie Gore or a CJ Abrams? I think it's a CJ Abrams. I think that CJ, if his tip-top ceiling can really hit for this team, you're talking about a 30 home run guy, someone who can steal 40 bases, get on base, make flashy plays, maybe moves over to second and everything starts to click defensively there. And then with MacKenzie Gore, his tip-top ceiling is a Cy Young kind of candidate who could be a top 10 arm in the National League. That's obviously valuable, but pitching is such a weird thing in which you're making 31 starts a year. Like, that's 31 games. Obviously, that's a huge deal. But with that in mind, can the Nationals get the most out of that? I don't know. Someone who can play 162 games, bat 300, hit 30 home runs, steal 40 bases at the tip-top peak compared to an all-star pitcher who's going to be great. Like, that's the kind of discussion that I think will have to happen inside those doors over at Nationals Park, because this is going to be something that I think a lot of people will be discussing, and it's going to be the talk around town for this offseason. The Nationals will not be going after Kyle Tucker. I'll break that news to you right now. They're probably not going to be going after Alex Bregman. Probably not going to be going after Pete Alonso. But what they will be doing is they will be very active in the trade market. And I think that right now, these moves with MacKenzie Gore and CJ Abrams, while both of them will be in trade rumors, I would only trade one of them. And if I were to pick one of them, it would be MacKenzie Gore. So we can talk about potential packages someday down the road here over the next couple of days. But as I said, I would not trade both of them this offseason. I would trade one or the other. not doing 2. You still got to retain some talent and hopefully build around your core group here in DC. But the Nationals will be making some savvy moves outside of MacKenzie Gore and CJ Abrams. And I ultimately 100% expect that to happen. But what exactly could that look like? I'll tell you what that is after this. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, and you and I make decisions every single day. But on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action than right now. And if you have not tried PrizePicks, it's the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including those big states like California, Texas, and Georgia. And I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, and it keeps every game exciting. I went more on points for Keyshawn George, more on the rebounds for Alex Sarr the other day, and yes, it made my Wizards basketball even more fun to watch. And plus, if one of your players even leave the game early with an injury, the injury reboot saves a lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's so good to be right. Savvy moves will be coming for the Washington Nationals in ways that will be outside of MacKenzie Gore and outside of CJ Abrams. I think that right now, the Nationals will be very, very active on the trade market. And I could see them trading some of their prospects, honestly. That's truly what I see. The Nationals have a huge cast of outfielding prospects right now. You think about the breakout guys. James Wood, all-star, you're going to build around him, face the franchise. Dylan Cruz will be a great player. I think he's going to take a huge step up under this new regime. Dalen Lyle, a NL Rookie of the Year candidate for the National League. He could be a star moving forward. You've got your outfield locked up. And then the 4th outfielder spot, you would think it would be Jacob Young. Well, that leaves a lot of people, a lot of questions surrounding the Nationals' outfield depth. You've got Robert Hassell III, a former top prospect, a former first-round pick, a top 100 prospect at times, who is still mega talented and great defensively. What do you do with him? Do you just let him sit down in the minor leagues and move off him? No, you should trade him. Then you've got even other guys like Christian Franklin, who you just got at this year's deadline. Looked really good in AAA Rochester, a solid defender, has got a little pop, can hit for average. He's someone that you have to think about. And then you get Andrew Pinckney, who had a great second half in AAA Rochester this year. Those are 3 guys outside of the 4 outfielders up in the bigs, Robert Hassell, Christian Franklin, and Andrew Pinckney, that are all ready to make that step up into the major leagues. They are not all going to be traded, but I do expect the Nationals to kind of replace the value with them. It's as simple as this. You have got way too many outfielders that are major league ready. Like, yes, they're going to be good down in AAA. And AAA Rochester, if you do hold on to some of these guys, they will take a step up and they'll be pretty damn good. But you also have another guy with Sam Peterson, who has been in high A Wilmington. He looked really good this year. He looked really good last year in just his limited stint with Fredericksburg as well. And he's crushing it down in the Arizona Fall League. He's another outfielding prospect that you've got to watch out for. Like, the Nationals have got a ton of outfielding prospects. You would expect for them to totally gut some of these guys and get some pitchers in this building. Preferably some arms that could be major league ready. But right now, the Nationals just simply need to start this process like now. You have got too many guys that are just going to be logjammed down in the minors. And maybe we talk about those waves of talent. Maybe Toboni has a vision for them. And maybe Toboni wants to move one to first base or try one as a DH. Like, I don't know at this point. But here's what I do know is that you've got too many outfielding prospects that are ready to take a step up that are blocked by 4 great outfielders up with the Nationals at this point. You're not going to trade James Wood. You're not going to trade Dylan Cruz, and you're not going to trade Dalen Lyle. You might trade Jacob Young. He's certainly in this mix as well to be moved. But I think that right now, the most value you could get back in return is maybe some of your top prospects, like we were talking about with Christian Franklin and Andrew Pinckney and others like Robert Hassell III. I think he's extremely likely to be moved this offseason. So the Nationals are going to be working them phones this offseason. I think that is something that a lot of people expect. This is an organization of which now I assume will be very savvy in which the way that they draft, the way that they develop, the way that they sign free agents. And I think that this offseason, Paul Toboni has called his shots. Like, you do not just hire a Blake Butera without really thinking about this for a while. Like, he did not go into this hiring process not knowing who Blake Butera was. This is something that has been sitting on his mind for a while. I'm willing to bet he's got a good idea of how he wants to build his team and how he wants to make his moves. And I think that right now, moving off some of your top outfielding prospects and getting some MLB pitching ready talent in return, that is at the forefront of that list for me. And I would not be surprised if Toboni has already got a plan in place. And when the winter meetings come around, you see some shifting and moving with some of these Nationals trades. So I expect change to happen. Change has already happened here. But seriously, do not be surprised if the Nationals are very active on the trade market outside of Gore and outside of Abrams. They'll be more than just that, in my opinion. But thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. If you have not done so already, look up Locked On Nationals over on our YouTube and hit that subscriber button. But I will catch you guys on the flip side. Tomorrow's show, we'll talk about some trade packages that could happen for the Washington Nationals and what exactly that could look like. I'll tell you all about that and more on tomorrow's show. So have a good one. Go Nats.